Hey everyone, welcome back. Another episode. Today's really cool. Today we have a guest on who has a really cool story. And out of the story has then effectively created a business serving people. It's in a way, it's a little different than how a lot of your functional and integrative medicine doctors are doing it. And it's really more designed around lifestyle of the individual so that the treatment that is being implemented is in alignment with the current state of your body and sort of how you are and how you live, right? Meaning that someone who lived like a really fit, active lifestyle, like the approach for them for detoxing and treatment might be different than somebody who's just been so chronically knocked down and has been bedridden and in that position, right? And so it's interesting because it's really talking about like dialing in how do we look at individuals instead of taking this like kind of larger chronic illness approach where like everyone needs to take this binder and everyone needs to do this thing. And I think the real improvement is made through the personalization of the individual that you're working with. And so that's what's really cool about our conversation today. So today we have Ashley Drummonds. So she's a board certified integrative health practitioner, but no, not but and her, but it's true. It's not a but. And her background is so cool. And I think it like lays into a lot of this. So I'm going to lay a couple things. I'll let you introduce yourself here. So she's been in the fitness nutrition space for 17 years. She was on the Shark Tank. It was a founder of business on the Shark Tank. She had a natural food brand started from scratch, sold it in 2022. And during that whole time, ended up with mold toxicity while in the midst of being a competitive athlete, while in the midst of running this national food brand. And somehow came out of the other side of this saying, hey, I need to help other people because I thrived at the end of this thing and I've seen it from this point of view. And so I'm going to pause there and I'm going to hand it off. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on here. I'm excited to talk to your audience and hopefully help them.
Yeah, I am too. And I like the angle of the conversation of it being a more personalized view of how an approach goes to kind of rebalance your body when it's dealing with an exposure. And so, I mean, let's just kind of start there. So you've gone through this. Your story is interesting, and maybe we start there because the approach for you isn't necessarily the approach as a high performing athlete wasn't going to be something that was in alignment with you. So could you maybe kind of talk through your journey, when you got sick,
Mhm.
sort of what you learned through that process, what you modified, like what you figured out coming out the back end of it?
Yeah, definitely. So the short version of the very far back story is I started a long time ago back in personal training. I've always been very passionate about helping people from a health and fitness perspective through strength training and nutrition. When I was in my early 20s, so 20, 21, 22, I had really bad anxiety and panic attacks that nobody could explain to me. So at that time, this wasn't as much of a big deal with functional medicine, integrative, all that stuff wasn't really around then. So I had gone to my regular doctor that has suggested anti anxiety pills or therapy. Well, I ended up going to the gym, started strength training. Over time, as I started strength training, my anxiety and panic attacks started to dissipate. And I saw it as a healing tool for a lot of people that could help them going through similar things. So that's kind of the beginning of how I got into all of this, not knowing what I know now, that there was probably a lot more going on. And we'll add into like the brain and strength training and all those things, especially with mold toxicity. Um, Shortly after, the other part of my passion being nutrition, I started a natural food product brand out of my kitchen from scratch, like all the way from the ground up, like true bootstrap entrepreneur journey. So adding in a layer of like high stress, high performer, highly active, landed a deal on Shark Tank, HSN, all the cool like media outlets and all those things. And then in 2018, I was living in Clearwater, Florida, which I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this in Florida and the humidity. And I was actually considering opening a small gym out there. And one of the things that I noticed is while I was there, like I started getting very weird skin rashes. It almost looked like it was all over my back, and it almost looked as if I had like really bad acne all over my back. And I've never had issues with acne before. That's not like something I've had a problem with. And I was like, well, maybe it's hot, like I'm sweaty. I don't really know what's going on. So continued going through this new business. It's going on for like 6 months. It's just a really terrible, gross looking rash. Well, shortly after that, I started having this thing where I don't really know how to describe it to people, but when I do describe it to mold people, they're like, yes, that. I know exactly what that is. It was this thing where I would fall asleep at night. A few hours after I fall asleep, I would just jolt awake, my heart racing, adrenaline pumping, like cold sweat, no reason at all, and I couldn't go back to sleep. So now I'm going back to like my early 20s. Like, am I having panic attacks again? Like, what's going on? Like, maybe it's stress. Couple months later, I start having some weird bladder type stuff going on that feels like a UTI. Go to the doctor, there's no UTI. Go to a different doctor, they're like, I don't know, like maybe it's just like histamine stuff. Maybe you just need to go on birth control. Maybe you just need to go on HRT. Then I finally got the first diagnosis of cystitis, which I had no idea what that was. I had to have a lot of people explain to me, and they're like, oh, it's this really terrible thing. It's inflammation of the bladder where it does feel like you have a UTI all the time. So at this point, I'm probably like early 30s. So I'm a competitive athlete. I'm eating super clean. I'm running a business. I'm very into like meditation, mindfulness. So like I'm doing all the things right. And now I've got these random sleep episodes where I'm waking up with essentially what looks like a panic attack. I'm getting weird rashes all over my body. And now I have something called cystitis. So all these things start kind of stacking up. And at the time, the gym that I was going to in Clearwater, there was a doctor there that I asked. I was like, listen, I don't know what is going on. I'm having all these weird things start popping up. And I remember her bringing up mold, except for at that time, she was like, yeah, but you don't like mold is more like peanut butter, coffee, all these food things. Like, but also, like, have you seen black mold or anything like that? And I was like, no, like, I don't know if there's black mold anywhere. Then things got worse. Then I started getting really bad vertigo. Then I remember the first time I was standing in the grocery store and it felt almost like somebody like pushed me in the back, and like that weird, like somebody hits you and you're about to fall over, except for obviously there's nobody around. So this went on for a really long time. Like most people's stories dealing with this, I went to hormone specialists, I went to urologists, I went to cardiologists, I went to allergists, I went everywhere. And eventually I had one of the episodes when I walked back into this gym and I had such a hard time breathing that I was convinced that I was having a heart attack because my heart rate was just through the roof. Couldn't catch my breath. I was shaking. I was dizzy. So I ended up going to the ER. I was like, can't breathe, shortness of breath. Like, I know it. I'm in my 30s. I guess this is it. Like, this is how I'm going out. They rushed me back there, like put all the pads on me, hooked me up to an EKG. And of course, then you get the news that can't find anything. Everything's fine. Sounds like you had an anxiety attack. That happened actually 3 more times. So it was really scary because I just kept having these episodes and nobody could tell me what was going on. In the meantime, I can't hardly get through my workouts like I used to. So workouts that I was doing regularly now became exhausted. But then when I would work out, I was just soaked, like head to toe, just dripping sweat, like very abnormal. So all this is going on. I finally found a doctor who kind of knew what mold toxicity was that put me on a protocol. And I mean, the first thing they gave me was like some sort of cleanse, like a gallbladder liver cleanse that I just needed to flush all that and get it out, which if anybody tells you to do that, I highly advise against it because it's terrible. You don't eat for like 2 or 3 days and all you can drink is apple juice and olive oil. It's really terrible. But so I did that. And then eventually, like, I kept going to all these different doctors. And one of them told me, like, oh, if it's mold and yeast and candida, you need to go keto. You need to go on a low carb diet. So I tried that because it's the doctor. Doctor knows best. Except for when I did that, my symptoms got worse. I show people on YouTube, I actually show people all my test results of what happened, like to my hormones, to my adrenal system. So I did the low carb thing. And then when I did that, being a very active person, it literally made my hormones look like I was in menopause. So it just created this whole cascade of things of nobody could help me figure out what to do. Everybody kept trying to give me prescriptions. Every protocol that I got given just made me feel worse and worse. So eventually, I decided to sell the other business that I had, and I just went full time into trying to get my health back, get my energy back. And I mean, I kind of used myself as my own guinea pig of just like, nobody seems to be able to figure this out, but like, I'm going to figure this out to get my health back on track and get back to being who I know I can be. And that's kind of what has led me here.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, a very normal story, unfortunately, that a lot of
I
people
know.
have for it too. It's like, I could just say when you did it, I could spit it off. Like, this is what someone goes through. And then you tell that to them and they're like, how did you know?
Yeah.
Because I've done this for a long time.
Yeah.
So we could tell that it's the same with you. So a couple of things came to my mind as you were going through this.
Mhm.
We talk about hormones, talk about adrenals. I want to get into some of kind of what you see as like some of the key things you're looking for as you're going through this. But before that,
Mhm.
you mentioned earlier that you found that you had success with, exercise and strength training. But then as you were talking, you also said something which I hear all the time is that you weren't able to exercise the way that you used to anymore, right? Like
Yep.
you don't have the energy, you're crashing, you're this. And that's super common. I hear that a lot of people. It's like, I can't exercise. I
Mhm.
can't do it. So can you go a little bit more into like the benefits of it, but then what happens when it's actually when you're not able to do that, right? Like when somebody is at the point where they can't do that. And maybe let's like start there.
Yeah, so that's been a very interesting experience both with myself and what I have found in working with clients because there's a couple things. So, the benefits of exercise. Specifically, I'm not talking about cardiovascular necessarily because that is a lot harder for a lot of people, especially because one of the big symptoms with mold is that shortness of breath, feeling like you
Mhm.
can't catch your breath, specifically strength training. And there are multiple reasons why I tell everybody, like, if you do nothing else for your health, start strength training. So, number one, as you know, mold definitely affects blood sugar. It affects our leptin receptors. Some people have the experience of they have this weight that they can't get off. And then there's other people that have this weight that they can't keep on. So, the more strength training that you do, the more lean muscle you are going to have, the more insulin sensitivity you have. So, it helps a lot with those who are struggling with the insulin signaling that comes from a glutathione deficiency, because most people already at this podcast know that glutathione being the master antioxidant that gets depleted in mold toxicity, it's also really important for insulin signaling. So if you have somebody who's got a glutathione deficiency, they're struggling, they're having those blood sugar crashes because of how mold impacts the pancreatic cells, it impacts the leptin receptors. The best thing that I have found is putting on more lean muscle mass because it's going to help regulate that insulin sensitivity. The other piece of this too is with mold, and we have the brain fog, we have the histamine intolerance, we have the vertigo, we have like the memory stuff, that we have the anxiety, like all the neurological symptoms that come up with that. Strength training has been studied for helping with not only cognitive decline as people get older, but also with healing the brain and the neuroplasticity and boosting the brain, the BDNF that helps with rewiring the brain. So when people are going through this and they have quote unquote brain injuries because of how the mold toxicity impacts the neurological pathways, one of the ways you can help heal your brain, other than helping with the blood sugar regulation, is also by helping with neuroplasticity and rewiring that nervous system. I mean, strength training is pretty heavy on the nervous system, but in a very positive way. So it works with helping on that side. It works with helping with a stress response and stress resilience. So strength training and muscle is very catabolic, or not catabolic, sorry, anabolic, where cardiovascular is more catabolic. Um, but then on top of that, muscle has been proven to produce myokines, which essentially are like your own little immune pharmacy that help with inflammation, that help with boosting the immune system, and help with regulating all of your different organ functions. So it's interesting though, because the part of this and why I find there's this gap in where I'm trying to fill it is when you have people who are this active. So in my situation where I was strength training and I was very active, however, the first protocol that I got put on was a low carb diet. So the low carb piece, which is so big in the mold world because we want to starve the candida, starve the yeast, like get rid of the fungal overgrowth, totally crashed my immune system and my hormone system as somebody who's super active. So that's what I am finding to be very helpful is I get a lot of people who come to me and it's almost like I could tell you, I could write a book on everything they say. Like I've always been really active. I don't know what happened. Now I can't get any weight to stay on, or I used to hit the gym really hard 3 or 4 days a week and now I can't. And so we go through a very specific intake process. And one of the first things I talk to them about is what are you eating? And what does your daily macronutrients look like? Because almost every person I find, they are not eating enough protein to support the immune system, to get the necessary amino acids that are responsible for helping boost that immune system. And they're not getting enough of healthy, complex carbohydrates to help with the liver and being able to efficiently fuel and detox through that. So they're like, I have no energy. I can't get back to the gym. And then we start adjusting their macronutrients and working on what their gym routine is like. And within 3 or 4 weeks, they're like, I don't have vertigo as bad. I actually have more energy. I was able to hit the gym 2 times this week. So I've been spending a lot of time on this because I hear so much on like the functional, integrative, naturopathic side of things that I am super grateful for because everybody is just doing such a good job at helping people. But there's this gap in like, well, what about people like myself who I can't follow that protocol or it totally spirals me and makes me feel worse. So that's what I'm finding.
Yeah, it's interesting because, a lot of the stuff that you find, it's like protocol specific in a way. And in a way, it's almost easier to talk like that. Not that it's the wrong thing to be talking about, because obviously we have to support the body doing things, but from just like a natural, like kind of human, what's the word? Just like how we naturally operate. It's easier to have a plan of take this, do that at certain times than it is to think about what we're eating. Like
Right.
that is naturally, just for people in general, a much more difficult thing to do than to say I take my vitamins in the morning and I take them at night, or I take my supplements.
Yep.
And so it's an easier path in a
Yeah.
way, because this is easier. I could do this a couple times. I don't have to think about every meal. I still get to eat what I want. I don't have to like do this, that, or the other. And my wife is super into macro.
Yeah.
She's very healthy, because my wife, thank God, is very healthy.
Yeah.
Um, and and having those foundational, like how much protein are you eating, like to the point where she's measuring everything every meal,
Yeah.
right? And I cycle in and out of doing it with her every now and then, but it's like you need to be doing 40 to 50 grams of protein in every meal, and you can't do more than 50 because your body can't handle more than 50. So don't sit here.
Right.
So she'll make fun of me because I'll just load up something. Like I got to make a quick lunch and I just like put a bunch of meat in a plate, taco meat in a plate, and do it. It's
Yep.
just like your body literally can't take all of that, what you're doing right now, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like, well, so it's really interesting because that is the foundation for things. Where I pulled out of what you said, and this might not be for everybody, but something, if you are one of these people, where if you're finding that I can't work out or I can't exercise, but we know what the value of it is, right? The stabilization of blood, the BDNF factor, which is huge. It's
Right.
I guess factor, if I say it like that, is huge, right? And so the strength training is a big part of that. Yet I can't strength train. Like also, like how much do I need to strength train, right? Well, like getting yourself a foundation that's just gonna, as you said, all of a sudden you're like, I at least have a little more energy. I can get in there a little bit. That allows you to do the next layer of that, the easier thing, the more natural foundational thing, which is like, let me do things that lets my body continue to help the progress. Let
Yeah.
me lift a couple of things without feeling like I'm going to fall down and pass out afterwards, because then that is going to help with the next stage of things. So like there, there's room for both, and there really is need for both. And I think a lot of times we skip the, hey, what's the foundational stuff that I should do? We go straight to the detox this, binder that, have bitters before my meal this, because it's going to help me break biofilm that. Like, sure, that's all great, like wonderful. But like, how do I just like put the gas in the engine to at least get it going before I start like, optimizing?
Yeah, and it's so interesting because like it really is mind-blowing to me because most people, I'm usually not the first stop for people. I've seen multiple doctors, multiple specialists and functional doctors and all that. And the first call we have, I'm like, all right, talk to me about your nutrition. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, do you have any idea? Like just a general ballpark of how much food are you getting? Like, what does it look like? And they're like, I, I think I'm getting enough. And I always ask, I'm like, with all these specialists and doctors, like you flew all over the country to see the best of the best. Nobody just asked you what you're eating. They're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, let's start with just like, are you even getting enough fuel for your immune system to function? Which most people, and I would say almost everybody's a little resistant to this and they want to skip it because there's so many people out there selling very fancy protocols that they're like, oh, but I don't know. This person says it, like we were talking about before, of like, I need to do the oxygen chamber, I need to do the enema, or I need to do the IV nutrients. And I'm like, maybe, but why don't we just first see how you do with the basics and how your body does when it's supported? And so I always, and anybody listening, like I always have people do the exercise of before you change anything, just keep eating what you're eating and just use one of the free apps and just track, just see, just to get an idea of you think you're getting close to body weight and protein per day. And then come to find out you're getting like 60 grams. So the liver is starving. Your body is eating your lean muscle to try to get the amino acids it needs in order to regulate the immune system. But now your brain, your blood sugar is all just like barely getting by because there's not enough food there. So yeah, and I mean, full transparency, like going through mold, doing my own detox protocol process and healing, I never did half the stuff that people are always talking about. I fixed my nutrition. I made sure that I always checked. Like if I had an episode or a day that I wasn't feeling great, I'm very like analytical and sciencey. I would go back, I would check like my nutrition, my workout, my supplements, my water intake, everything for the day, and I would find a pattern. I'm like, oh, well, I did a really hard workout that day, but I definitely did not get enough of my protein or carbohydrates. So now my body is trying to fight the inflammation from mold, but also from exercise, but it's also trying to repair and it's breaking down red blood cells. So like I just started recognizing these patterns and fixed the nutrition. Don't get me wrong, I did use binders. I did use targeted nutrients and supplements, but outside of that, I did not do half of the stuff that I think people think that they have to do in order to heal. And I don't know how you feel about the body, but I'm a big believer that the body knows how to fix itself if you give it the right environment externally and internally. But if you are staying in a moldy environment and it can't get rid of the toxins fast enough, but then you're also not supporting the internal environment with enough nutrients, it can't do anything. And then that's where you end up like with the more severe cases and on a lot of prescriptions and thousands of dollars later.
Yeah, you're hitting a leg. So am I spending money in the place that's going to have the biggest return on that investment? And that is really, it's important. It's important to think of it that way, but it's not always the easiest thing that gets you that return on your investment, right? And certain things might cost more at the beginning, but then they save so much later because you address one of the early foundational components of what's going on,
Right.
right? You know, having the right food. You might have to eat more food. You might have to eat different types of food that are maybe more expensive food, right? Like you
Yep.
might have to do that. And so you're spending more on groceries maybe than you were, but that's now allowing you to not have to do the things downstream that were even
Mhm.
more expensive than what you're spending on the groceries, right? And there's other ways, there's other examples of that pattern.
Right. Well, it's also fixing a fundamental problem. I am interested in helping you not just heal this, but also to feel better than you did even before all of this happened. And the way we have to do that is I can't give you a 3 or 6 month detox protocol with just binders, because it's not just binders that need the support. Your whole body needs help getting the right fuel, getting the right nutrients, getting on the right lifestyle track. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. I had a call with somebody today that I was talking to her about that. And I mean, there's a lot of things we have to work on together between her nutrition, but also some food sensitivity and gut stuff. And I explained to her, I was like, listen, I'm not going to pretend like I have like the secret protocol for you, because every single person that I deal with is different. And for you, you're probably looking at changing your whole lifestyle in at least a year of very slowly making these changes, so that not only do you heal from this, because she's got some autoimmune stuff going on too. But I'm like, when you got autoimmune and you got mold and you got gut and food sensitivities, that's not just a mold problem. That is the body is not being taken care of properly. And I want to help get you healed through this, but then also set up for longevity in the long run. And that's not what sells. Telling somebody to like change their lifestyle. That's why like having a background in fitness and nutrition and all that stuff, like anytime somebody's like, I want to get in shape, I want to lose weight, just what's the fat burner? What's the fast thing? And it's like, I don't have that. I can tell you exactly, I will give you the exact formula, but it's going to take time and consistency and you making some serious changes. And that's not what sells in marketing. That's not what people want to hear.
I have a friend, this is when I was in college. I don't know if you remember this. There's this thing called the Amatronic. I don't know if you remember this thing.
Is that
I mean,
the slidey thing?
it was like this pad, but it's with electrodes that you just stick on your,
Okay.
like while you're watching TV and eating Doritos, and it give you abs.
Yep.
Like, and, and I had a friend in high school who's a bigger guy, and he bought an Amatronic. I'm like, dude, stop sitting on the couch and eating Doritos.
Oh my gosh. I
Like,
know.
no, I'm going to do this because it's going to do it right. And that's like a very big, broad example. But it's like normal, just normal human nature is easy and fast to get there, right? Give me the
Yep.
pill, the thing I put on while I'm eating my Doritos and watching stuff. And it's not to say that everything has to be hard, right? But it's like there's certain things that are going to require something, you know?
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to like just touch on a bit more. So like people who come in and they were more physically active like you were versus people who were like normal, right? Maybe they
Yeah.
weren't like totally couch potatoes that did nothing, but they were just like a normal person versus like a very active person.
Yeah.
What is the difference in those two people coming in? Like if you see both of those people, like, are you still driving them both towards the strength training support piece? Obviously, nutrition is going to go for both of those people, but like how
Yeah.
does that change your approach to someone?
Yeah, so I have both actually. I have people who have a significant amount of weight that they need to lose, that they are not following a healthy lifestyle. They haven't been active in 20 years. Um, the difference, so the approach is similar. Obviously, it's adjusted specific to them. So what one person needs in nutrition is going to be different than what somebody else needs. The same thing when it comes to like nutrient deficiencies and all that. The harder part, if you are not active, is it's a lot harder to get that detox process started, because you already, number one, we know mold likes to store itself in fat cells. So the more body fat you have, higher body fat you have, the harder it is to get that stuff out. So now we're not just working on losing weight. We're losing weight, fighting mycotoxins, infections, fixing your nutrition. It is a much longer and harder process. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just there's more layers that have to be peeled back. I do still, though, have that individual that's not active start on strength training, because that's going to at least help with some of that blood sugar issue, high glucose, cholesterol, that all gets impacted. But also there tends to be a connection I have found with the gut with those who are inactive. So it's two different things. I find my active people have a ton of gut inflammation, yes, from mold, but also from the inflammation that comes from just stress from exercise. But then I have the other side, those who are not as active that have gut issues from multiple chronic infections going on outside of mold. So usually it's like SIBO, mold, candida, yeast, all kinds of things, that it just becomes a little more complex for the inactive person because there's a level of lifestyle change that isn't in place yet, as opposed to the person who's already exercising. The lymphatic system is open, the drainage pathways are open. We just have to help support the body and the immune system. So I mean, it takes a lot of resiliency and mindset coaching on the side of the inactive person to just convince them of how important strength training is. But funny enough, I can actually convince most people to at least do the strength training. I like to as well. If you're not super active, I mean, all this is very dependent on the severity of how this person feels too. Like, I'm not going to throw you into like, all right, 5 days a week, start strength training, like squats, deadlifts, overhead press. I usually recommend if you can start with just 2 as a bare minimum, you're still going to benefit from it. But I typically have people start 3 times a week, 20, 30 minutes a day. You don't have to do anything extensive. And then, yeah, the protocol just gets adjusted based on obviously their test results, how they're feeling, and things like that. But I usually start with nutrition for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. The body needs the fuel to be able to do what you want it to do, and like you gotta at least you gotta give it a chance, right? You gotta give it a chance.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it's
which
crazy.
is
I was just going to say it's crazy right now, like the trend of, I feel like we're, everything, obviously history repeats itself, but I'm like, now we're back in like the skinny trend where everybody's not eating. And the problem is like people aren't eating, and now the immune systems are shutting down and the hormone systems are shutting down, and they're struggling with mental health, and they're losing their bone density and osteopenia and toxicity. And I'm like, man, when did like we forget about basic human foundational needs to function optimally of sleep, proper fuel and nutrition. You might need some nutrients and supplements, get outside, get some sunshine, sweat, move your body, like things like that. So it's interesting that I just find it very, it's been a thing that like keeps like poking me because I'm like, why is everybody talking about all these complex things when 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you, most of these people are just missing a lot of the core foundational pieces.
yeah. So someone is listening, and this is like hitting them like, oh, sounds like me, or this makes sense. Like, what are 2 things, 3 things they should start thinking about? Like, what do you say to them like right now?
I would say to do the experiment of just for fun, just for your own research for a week, start tracking everything you're eating. And even if you think, because I hear it all the time, I get plenty of protein, I get plenty of food. Even if you think that, just do it and just get like real data. It's kind of like the person that spends too much money and they're like, no, I'm within my budget. You're like, let's just track it. Like, let's just see what's happening. And they're like, oh my God, I'm overspending every week. On the flip side, the same is true as well. Those who are having issues with not able to lose weight and they are contributing it to mold, like let's first just see if you're also not overeating and you're not getting too much sugar and too much of the processed foods. And maybe we can offload the toxic burden simply by eliminating some of those foods that are clogging up your system. So yeah, number one, just see what you're eating. I typically tell people at the bare minimum, zero point 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. That's the bare minimum. If you're more athletic, you're going to need to be closer to like 1 to 1.2 grams. And a lot of people have a hard time believing that, but I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference on a lot of different levels.
Mhm.
Carbohydrates. I know everybody in this space is probably anti-carbohydrate, but for what it does for all the things that we've talked about, women specifically, 150 grams, no less a day. Anything beneath that, and if you're active, you're more like on the 200 plus gram side a day. because if you drop below that, that's when we start to see the endocrine system, being your hormone system, start to come down and lower. We see DHEAs coming down. We start to see things like anxiety, panic attacks, blood sugar dysregulation, low energy, sleep disturbances, all that stuff. So get some healthy carbs in there. And then the other thing I would say is, like, even if you don't really know what you're doing with strength training, I think most people know the basics. They know what a squat, they know what a push up, they know what bent over rows and shoulder to overhead or overhead press looks like. Just start at the bare minimum. And I guarantee you, your test results, your labs are going to change over time, but you're also going to feel a little bit better as well. And then obviously, like, do all your functional testing, like check your gut, check for other infections, check for micronutrient deficiencies. But before you jump on any kind of protocol, if whoever you are working with doesn't start there, then I may consider going somewhere else.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. How do people find you? And you mentioned your YouTube channel where you break down a lot of this stuff. So where's the best place for people to find you if they want to talk to you, if they want to work with you? How does that work?
Yeah, it's just my name is my website. So it's just ashleydrummonds.com. And then that's also my YouTube channel. It's just Ashley Drummonds on YouTube. And then all the links and everything are on all of that. I have a lot of articles talking all about this stuff, a lot of videos where, like I said, I show test results and lab results and kind of explain with the hopes of like educating people and empowering them on how they can help start healing right now. But yeah, so that's all.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time and coming on and talking through it. I mean, let's make sure we're getting the basics in line and on point, and then layer on what's necessary
Yeah.
as opposed to taking that step. You said check what you're eating. You're probably not eating enough. When I first started checking what I was not eating enough at all. Right.
Right.
At all. And I felt like I was never hungry.
Yeah. Well, right.
But
And that's what
yeah,
everybody says. And then you start explaining, you're like, well, you're not hungry because your body's upregulating cortisol to give you energy instead of getting it from food. And then you're like, oh, that's why I'm not seeing progress in anything that I'm doing.
yeah. So I've done this, like not for the reason of detox, but just I've gone through
Right.
the process to like, what am I actually doing? And it's pretty crazy. Like my protein intake, not even close to what
That's
I needed.
that's the big one. That's a big one, and it's hard convincing people that they need that much. But I'm telling you, within weeks, when people start eating more, and we do our bi-weekly calls and check-ins, I'm like, "How are you feeling?" They're like, "I actually was able to go to the gym. I have a little more energy. I'm sleeping better." I'm like, "Right, because you're actually fueling your body with enough protein, and it's not falling apart."
Yeah, for everybody listening to this before we wrap up, it's not just about like going to the gym, but like a lot of you have chronic fatigue issues where you're just tired all the time. So take the I'm going to go to the gym and work out thing and set it on the side for a second and just say the first step is I'm going to be able to walk around today and not feel like I'm super tired or want to pass out.
Right.
Right. Like no matter how much rest I get, I'm always tired. Right.
Right.
Like, so that is part of more energy, right? It's more energy to get to be able to do more things. And so if you're on that other side of the fence where it's like, dude, forget working out, like this whole conversation, there's no chance. I've had clients who are like, you're freaking nuts. I'm not working out,
Yeah.
right? I'm so tired. I can't move. I can't
Right.
get out of bed. Well, let's get your body what it needs to help that as opposed to kind of ignoring the foundational fuel that allows us to have energy. Right. And so that's what's really cool about this too. So
Yeah.
anyways, all right, everyone, thanks for hanging. And Ashley, we will talk to you later. I'm going to be on Ashley's show in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Recording it. So
Yeah.
this will be fun. We'll talk to you then.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.